So I want to talk a little bit about the YouTube boxing scene, right? Not something we talk about too much on the channel, but it's something that's been, I guess, buzzing in the world of, I guess, combat sports, more so like YouTube and all that stuff. But we're going to talk about it anyway. So KSI and Jake Paul have obviously been trending for I don't know how many weeks now. You know, they've been going at it. They have this huge feud on social media, right? Jake Paul is a guy who, again, a YouTuber. KSI is another guy who's a YouTuber. Jake Paul having had fought at least more credible fighters to this point than KSI. And it leads me to say this before I get right into it. I understand that you guys hate Jake Paul, and I understand that a lot of you guys love KSI, right? And I see that online. It seems like a lot of the KSI support comes from his true fans from like YouTube. Maybe not so much from anything he's done in combat sports, but they just love him so much from like his YouTube channel and all that stuff, the Sidemen stuff, that, I mean, it's hard to say that they're not biased, right? But I'm here to give you guys a little bit of reality and what, you know, if you know who Eddie Hearn is, a guy who's a very big promoter, one of the best in the world, particularly in the world of boxing, he went out and said that Jake versus KSI is not a good fight. You know, KSI really does Jake rather beats KSI quite easily. That's what he said. And I'm here to double down on that. If Jake Paul were to fight KSI like right now or within the next year, KSI is going to get starched. He's going to get knocked out by Jake Paul. Now, I'm not the biggest Jake Paul fan. I'm not here to defend Jake Paul or anything. I'm just here to tell you guys the truth. And the truth is, look at the level of opposition. It's not close. Look at what both guys have done in their time in the ring, the qualities they've shown, the ability they've shown, the skill that they've shown. Jake Paul's just showing a lot more. Granted, Jake's had over twice the amount of fights, or at least twice the amount of fights that KSI has, right? But you can't really say that KSI is a better boxer because we haven't seen enough. So let's lay it all on the table, right? Who has KSI fought and beat? Even in a professional bout, and isn't he just 0-1? Because I know he fought Joe Weller. I believe that was an amateur bout, was it not? The Joe Weller kid was just another YouTuber. I think that might have been his first fight too. So can we really give that anything? Can we really give that any merit? Second fight, he fights Logan, right? If I'm not mistaken. And that's not even a pro fight, but whatever. I don't know. I think, was there a winner in that one? Was there a winner? Didn't they draw? Either they drew or it was like an exhibition, so they didn't count it. Whatever. Moving on to his now third fight where he fights Logan again in a rematch. That one was apparently a pro bout, right? But KSI didn't show me much in that fight. He showed extremely wild looping punches, just started blitzing Logan and fought. It's good to fight aggressive in some scenarios, but he was very overly aggressive most of the time. And Logan seemed to have been the more calculated fighter. It seems that if Logan didn't get a point deducted from what I've read and from what I've seen in the bout, that Logan would have won that fight. And Logan did seem to show more ability, did seem like a more pure athlete. But KSI did have that dog factor, and that's something that I'll give to him. But we look at Jake's side now. Jake's fought a lot better people, guys. I'm a big MMA fan, and I could tell you about Tyron Woodley and Ben Askren all day, any day. Ben Askren is a guy who legitimately was not, listen, to say that Ben Askren was not known for his striking is an absolute understatement. Ben Askren was mocked for his striking in mixed martial arts. Mocked for it. To the point where if a fight was standing long enough, people would be like, Ben, what are you doing? Get that shit to the ground. Because that's where you excel, and that's pretty much the only area where you are good. He's not a great striker at all. You know, most MMA fighters, you could say they're at least pretty good boxers, but Ben, it was kind of non-existent, the striking. Jake picked that guy strategically. Credit to him. It was like his first real fight that I would consider, because the prior ones where he knocked out the YouTubers, kind of hard to even count that. So that first real fight was a guy, Ben Askren, who fought him. Yeah, strategically, I guess. It was a strategic picking from Jake Paul, and it was smart. But, you know, it's hard to give you credit for that. And then we move on to the Tyron Woodley fight, where that's where I'll give him his credit in the two fights. He fought a guy who, yeah, he was coming off like a 5-fight losing streak, a guy who was clearly over the hill, a guy who was not a boxer to begin with, a mixed martial artist with a wrestling background. But don't let that be confused. Woodley didn't always rely on his wrestling. Woodley actually used his striking most of the time. A lot of the time. He did like to mix it up, but Woodley did rely on his big right hand a lot of the time. But I think Jake saw a good opportunity there to take out a guy who is a lot older, is over the hill, and isn't training boxing, has to split the time between boxing, grappling, etc., and the other forms of martial arts in MMA, in the UFC that he has to go up against. He's doing that. He's splitting his time, thus not allowing him to go 100%. He's going maybe 30% on boxing, 40% at most. So it's hard to get better. Jake Paul was getting better at a way more consistent clip because Jake Paul was training boxing 100% of the time for 4 or 5 years or whatever it was before that fight, consistently with some of the best coaches in the world, because he could pay the best coaches in the world because he has so much money. Speaking of money, he doesn't have to go work a job. He already has a lot of stuff that's making him money, I'm sure, on the outside. And so all he can focus on is train. He doesn't have to split his time or anything like that. So it was a smart fight on his end. But Jake did show a lot of stuff in that fight. Did he show me that he could be a boxing world champion or like a ranked guy or anyone we take serious? No, not at all. Like, he really hasn't. Go look at the second Tyron Woodley fight. The technique was atrocious in that fight. He didn't look good. And, he threw a lot of wild little like punches that looked like they had no form on them, no technique. He at times would sort of like come in and duck his head, leaving himself open, exposed for big shots that a more calculated and more experienced and just a overall better boxer than Woodley, because he's not a boxer, that boxer would have landed that shot on Jake when he dipped his head and did all those sorts of things. So again, is Jake good from the standards of like an average human being? Yeah, he's really good as a boxer if you want to compare him to average human beings. Is he good compared to like actual elite boxers in the world? No, not at all. But he's pretty good. KSI has not shown that. KSI has not shown me anything except sort of a wild fighter with big loopy punches and just throw sort of haymakers, like almost like hope and pray kind of shots, right? You hope it lands and you just throw wild shots. Jake honestly has shown the ability. Look at Jake. Let's talk about the Nate Robinson fight, right? And I think that's one that I left out. Jake fights Nate Robinson. Nate Robinson, now I'm not going to give him credit for that because that's an NBA player. But here's the thing. Nate Robinson is a guy who blitzed him, who came in on him like hard. You know what I mean? He was coming in to take his head off, and in a very ignorant way. KSI did a lot of that in the Logan Paul fight. If KSI does that against Jake Paul, he's going to catch a big counter right hand, just like Jake did to Nate Robinson, and KSI is going to get knocked out. If that doesn't happen, we've seen Jake at least go 8 rounds. Has KSI ever had an 8-round fight? I don't think he has. And I'm not being a Jake Paul apologist here, guys. I'm not. I'm not even a fan of the guy. I'm just saying it is what it is. Jake's gone 8 rounds. He's gone 8 hard rounds with Woodley. Have we seen KSI ever go 5 rounds? Now, I know he's credited for having a gas tank, for being a dog. So I'm sure, if he were to fight Jake and it was an 8-round bout, let's give him the credit to get there, right? If it has to go there. But I don't know, man. From what I've seen, Jake has pop in his right hand. He has big power. He's put guys out. I've never seen KSI just straight up starch a guy in a boxing bout. I mean, have you? I don't know. How did the Joe Weller fight go? Did he really put him out with a huge, crazy... Like, we've seen Jake put people out with some big shots. And so, listen, again, got to call a spade, guys. Jake Paul knocks KSI out at this moment in time. And it just is what it is. I don't think KSI would really want that fight, man. I really don't. I think it's a really bad fight for KSI. And here's the thing, man. KSI is definitely a more likable guy than Jake Paul. I'm a big MMA fan. Jake Paul's been disrupting our world of MMA for a long time. So I'm not here to defend the guy. I'm just telling you that Jake Paul would beat KSI, guys. Like, it is what it is. I'm sorry, KSI fans that are clearly a bit biased here. And I like KSI, but the truth is the truth, guys, and Jake definitely beats KSI at this moment in time.